Hello everyone, and welcome to March and this month's theme on the Kriya Yoga online channel, the theme of contemplation. So these past 2 months, January and February, we began by assessing our meditation practice. That was January, seeing where we needed to improve our attention, improve our technique. In February, we looked at the influence and power and practice of prayer within our spiritual practice. So more of the devotional aspect. This month we're going to look at contemplation, which speaks more to the jnana yoga or knowledge path. And all of these need to go together. So we don't want to think of devotion, kriya or action, jnana knowledge as separate. They're all synergistic in how they work within your meditation practice, within your life. Now, before we look at contemplation specifically, we want to understand, again, what is the purpose of our Kriya practice or our Kriya techniques? Well, the techniques that we use in meditation are for calming the mind and calming the nervous system. Once we've practiced pranayama or we've practiced mantra, then our nervous system calms, our body calms down, our mind becomes more clear, and our emotions become more settled. When that occurs, it's easy for us to experience our nature as pure consciousness, the soul, however you want to refer to it. But it's that innate state of peace, tranquility, fulfillment, and knowing. And we have to be careful with our meditation practice because too often there's an overemphasis put on technique. And that's understandable because technique does help us to stay alert and awake and to learn to experience samadhi or to absorb our attention in a particular state of consciousness. But one of the dangers with technique, especially repetitive techniques, which most meditation practices are, is the danger of becoming almost hypnotized into a trance state. And when you're in a hypnotic state or a trance state because of repetition of a mantra or steadiness of the breath, that can be good, but most people are not alert and awake in their consciousness when this occurs, which means that they are, sure, in a thought-free state, but they are not aware. They are passively involved in it. So we have to be careful with our meditation practices that they don't turn into self-hypnosis or a way to simply put ourselves in a trance, because while that can be enjoyable, especially if you're not enjoying your life very much or you're in a bad situation, it's a type of escape. When it comes to awakening, realization, it's only helpful as long as you are able to stay conscious, alert, and aware. So we have to remember this. So the Kriya practices in any meditation technique, the goal is to calm the nervous system, balance the nervous system, the energies, the prana flows within the body, balance the mind, balance the emotions, and in a sense give us the capacity to develop some detachment from these changing phenomena. Now, once that occurs, if we can remain alert and awake in that state, just existing within pure awareness, and we can hold our attention there, our evolution, spiritual evolution, will occur naturally. For example, Ramana Maharshi, one thing he said is if you just keep your attention on your crown and you can simply be quiet, that's all you need to do. Very easy. I would consider that an advanced practice, even though it is so easy. But most of us can't do that because we need some sort of training wheels, which is understandable. In time, you do learn to do that. So what happens? Well, once you've practiced your techniques and you're calm and you're clear, and you sit in the silence as long as you can, or sit in the peacefulness generated or revealed through the practice, then it can be very helpful to engage in a contemplative practice. And this is something we've gone in detail with in the Kriya Yoga Sutras course, which is available on astralvedicastrology.com as a download 26-hour class, because we needed to be able to contemplate in order to understand the sutras correctly. But we're just going to go over the finer points for you today so that you can start including it in your practice throughout the month of March. Now, once you experience this clear, thought-free state, then you bring up the questions that you have. And this is very important because too often people have questions, spiritual questions, and they look for them in books or they ask a teacher, and they just go with whatever the book says or with whatever the teacher says without actually getting direct experience of that knowledge. And that's not transformational, which is why contemplation is so important, because it gives you that direct knowledge. So if you have a question, what is God? What am I? Why is there all this suffering in the world? What is love? What would it be like to be enlightened? These are all very valid questions. But you have to get to a point where you're calm and clear, and then you can ask the question. Really ask the question. And in a sense, this is a very similar approach to prayer, except now we are calling it contemplation. So if you're experiencing suffering and you don't know where God is or why would the suffering occur, rather than just throwing up your hands and asking the question but not really wanting the answer, stop and seriously, sincerely ask the question. What is this all about? Why is there suffering in this world? And this may take days, weeks, months of contemplation until the aha moment occurs. And this is going to be beyond words. You're not going to be able to describe it to anybody, but you have an inner knowing, an inner, almost as if within you the knowledge, the information has been downloaded and unfolds, and you just have it. It's there. And again, it can't be held within words. So any questions that you have at the end of your meditation practice, once you're calm and clear, and again, what do I like to do? I get my little timer out, just so I stay on track, and I'll say for 4 minutes, or for 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, depending on how much time I have that day, if I want to know, what is this all about? What is my relationship with God? I write that question down in a journal, because again, writing it down has an effect of bringing it more fully into your consciousness. And then I start my timer, and I ask the question. My eyes are closed, my attention's at the spiritual eye or the crown of the head, and I ask, what am I? And I'll do that for 4, 5, 10, 15 minutes straight. But I don't, again, treat it as though I'm using it as a mantra or something repetitious to put me in a trance state or a hypnotic state. I'm asking the question, what am I? And then I'm waiting and listening internally for as long as my mind is silent. And then as soon as a distraction rises again, I pull my awareness back and I ask again, what am I? With more conviction, with more feeling. And when I do this, maybe it's because of my own practice that I've had so far to date, but I know that the rest of me, the rest of my consciousness is listening. And if I ask the question, the information will be revealed to me in time, when it's appropriate. And sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes it takes a little while. But if there's something I really want to know, then you have to contemplate it to the point of realization. And you have to avoid the thought, well, how long is it going to take to know this? Because if you have that thought, no point in even beginning the process. You want to be at a place where there's something you want to know, and you're ready to ask that question and wait for the information to be revealed to you, within you, around you, whatever it might be, for as long as it takes. Then success is certain for you. So essentially we have to realize that contemplation allows the soul to access its innate knowledge, but it does require consistency and coherence. Why do I say that? Because just imagine you're having a conversation with someone, and rather than being direct and to the point and trying to figure out one thing, you ask them 10 things at once. Or then you change your mind, you want to know something else, and you're jumping around everywhere. And by that time, the person you're talking to thinks you're crazy and just doesn't say anything. So there has to be some coherency to it. And the more coherence there is, however coherent it may be, the more likelihood that answers will be revealed to you much quicker and much more clearly. And in time, keep a journal. Write down all the things you want to know, spiritually speaking, mundanely speaking. For our purposes, we want to focus more on our spiritual practice. All those things that you've read in the Yoga Sutras or the Bhagavad Gita or Vasista's Yoga that you didn't understand, well, write it down. What does this mean? And write out what does, and then write out what the issue is, means. Once a day, contemplate it. And how do you do that? You read it out loud or internally. You are curious about what each word means, so you're sure you know what each word means. And then you ask the question, what does it mean when in the Yoga Sutras it says or implies that yoga is abidance as the self? Full abidance as the self. What does that mean? And you have that curious feeling, like you really want to know. You're not stressed about it, you just really want to know. And you wait and you sit. You bring it up again. What does this mean? And maybe you just focus on one aspect at a time. Abidance as the self. What does it mean to abide? What is the self? And this is very important. It's something that we did go over in this Yoga Sutras training, this MP3 download, is that you have to be very clear on what you're asking. Meaning if you don't understand what a word in your question is, it's going to make it harder for you to understand the full realization. So when you're studying a text, maybe you're reading Vasista's Yoga, and it says something like, there is no difference between the subject and the object. Well, when I first began studying that, I thought I knew what subject and object meant, but then it occurred to me, let me go look that up in a dictionary. And I read the definition of object, and I read the definition of subject, and objective and subjective, and it allowed me to get a little better sense of understanding of what these phrases meant when those terms were used. And then when I asked the question, it was easier for me to get this inner realization, this aha moment. So this is how you want to do it. And then once your timer goes off, you're done for the day, forget about it. You'll come back to it tomorrow. There has to be this period of rest. There has to be this period of rest, asking the question, and then letting the question reveal itself. Again, just like planting seeds in a garden. You have to plant the seeds, then you have to let them grow. And you can't be concerned about how long it's going to take. That's not a useful part of the process. You have to be patient, surrender. This is also part of Kriya Yoga. In fact, in the first sutra of the second chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras on Kriya Yoga, surrender to the self is very important. So surrender, trust, faith, which we discussed how to develop that in the last February video on prayer. Now there'll come a time when there are no more questions. And when there are no more questions, what do? You sit. You exist. You are yourself. So if you want to short circuit all of this and quit asking all these questions, one major question you could ask would be, what would it be like if all of my questions were answered? That's a very direct contemplative route, skipping a lot of the intermediary steps. It may be that you're not quite ready for that yet, but if you are, give it a shot. But otherwise, there's no harm in spending time after meditation contemplating, truly contemplating all those spiritual questions you have. Because if you do that, the answers will come, the realizations will come, and you'll eventually have all of your questions answered. And that's what the soul seeks. The soul itself seeks this kind of knowledge. And once that knowledge is revealed, and see what happens. Anyway. So overall, you want to practice your meditation. Ahead of time, you want to have written down the things that you want to contemplate. Maybe they're just philosophical questions that you have, or maybe you've read a spiritual text, or you've read something that a spiritual teacher has said, and you don't quite understand it, and you want to know, what does that mean? Well, you need to write it down. What does this mean? ? And then once your meditation's over, if you like, you get out your timer, set it for however long you want. That's how long you're going to contemplate. You pull up the question, you read it to yourself, you ask it with feeling, with intention. Again, remember a time when you really wanted to know something and you were asking someone either for help or for information. It's that same kind of, please share this information with me, while simultaneously having the knowing that the person on the other end, in this case, the rest of you, consciousness, is providing the knowledge, and it may take a little while. So we have to ask the question and then rest. Ask the question again, rest. Not to hypnotize ourselves or remain alert and awake. As Eckhart Tolle said one time, it's like watching a cat watch a mouse hole. A cat doesn't know when that mouse is coming out, but he's ready when it does. That's your state of consciousness. He's waiting, watching. And then once the timer goes off, you go about your day. So for the month of March, this is your homework and your practice is to do your regular meditation and schedule a few minutes at the end of every meditation or at other times during the day to practice contemplation in this way. And feel free to share your insights or experiences in the comment section of this page, this video. So thank you very much. Don't hesitate to hit the like button for this video, and feel free to share this with your friends who are also interested in spirituality, meditation, Kriya yoga, and contemplative practices. Okay, be well.